You can also write your Python code using a text editor, which we have already discussed, that Python source files are text files basically. So you can open a simple text editor if you need to, and then you can simply write the same statement, the same command, same instruction. Welcome to our course. Okay, so this file now contains a single source Python source code, single line of Python source code, and I'm going to save this file. Okay, it says save to some location. Let's say I locate it under my not Zoom folder, but let's make it located at a more simple. I'm going to store it under my D drive, and I'm going to name it as my first Python code.py. py is the default extension for our Python source codes, and we save it. Now it is located in my D drive. I'm going to go back to my command prompt. Okay, I'm going to enter Python space D drive, and under my D drive I have my first Python code.py. okay, and it's when I hit enter, it's going to output the contents in this file. Okay, it's going to execute this file as a program, and it's going to display welcome to our course as a result of this execution. If I change the content to 150 and save the file on my file system and go back to the executing area, the command prompt, and retype my command as Python space the address of the file in your file system, and enter. Now the output has also changed because this program is executing is being executed to display some text. You can also add additional text in other lines. Okay, welcome to Boğaziçi University, for instance. Okay, this is another statement in our file. We will be working on source files rather than command prompt, but if you need to access some remote location or edit a simple file, you should be able to do this on your own. When I execute the same file on my terminal, it's going to display 2 lines of code as I have instructed my program to do so. This is as simple as that. So you can write a text file, include some source statements, some Python instructions in your source file, and execute it right away. So whenever you ship your you send your code to some other people, you sell it and make a lot of money from your code, you can simply put your instructions into the text files and let them execute your program on their own benefit. As we move on to our slides, we see that PyCharm IDE, which is called an integrated development environment. IDEs are very useful. Instead of dealing with all these notepad or simple text editors, IDEs also provide some programming assistance such as error correction, debugging, guiding the developers to the correct direction, including additional libraries, etc. There are many features bundled with integrated development environments. So PyCharm is one of the most practical integrated development environments as we are currently using in our course. There's also this slide telling you about comments, which we have discussed in today's lecture. This is a text area that you can write anything regarding your application. Think of this as leaving notes to some other people or yourself when you come back to your code after a while. So you make a coding and you leave the code for a couple of weeks, months, maybe years, and you come back to your code to maintain it, you correct it, you modify it. You might need these kind of guidance statements in your code, indicating what this program is doing or what this part of the program is intended to do, or which ways you passed through, which mistakes you made, and warn yourself or other people or your employees if you happen to come up with a group of people that are working with you, for you. So it's very important that you include these comments in your applications wherever you need them, wherever you see some information to be passed on. The comment starts with a sharp sign. Okay, it might be called a DS or a hashtag sign in pop culture. It prevents the remaining part of the line. Okay, this part is the remaining part of the line following the hash sign. It prevents that line to be executed as a statement in the Python program. As you see, this print is a statement that is used to output some text. Okay, here this first print statement is an executable line of code. The next print following the previous one it's not an executable. It actually looks like an executable. Okay, it's a legitimate line of code. It can be executed, but this hash sign at the beginning of the line prevents it from being executed. So you might use it for preserving your old code, or taking your code to an idle state. So you don't want to lose that code either. You might be testing something, or you might want to leave it there so that you made some mistake, and whenever you come back to your code, sometimes we keep doing the same mistakes. So if you let it there with a legitimate command telling that don't go that way, it doesn't lead to somewhere nice. So it would be useful for other people as well, for yourself as well. So there are many uses of comments, but the important thing is the comments are there for human information. It doesn't make any sense to your computer or your program. Okay, it's for our own information, and the computer just disregards them. It doesn't do anything. You can also add comments following legitimate statements. So if we copy these lines of code to our notepad, for instance, and try to execute them here. Okay, I have copied that text file, that source code. Now I have one comment in the first line. I don't have any comments in the second line. The third line looks like a statement, but actually it is not, because it starts with the comment sign. And the fourth line has a legitimate, an executable line of code, and it's followed by another comment. So I can also put something else, but Python only accepts a statement in a single line. So we cannot add two statements in a line. It doesn't allow that. When we execute this source file in our terminal, as we have done previously, it displays the first print statement. Let me open this up here for you. It displays the first output statement. This program is demonstrating the effects of comments. As you see in my terminal, this program is demonstrating the effects of comments. It skips the next print statement. The line will not be executed. It doesn't print it out. It is in the source file, but it's not executed by the Python interpreter. It jumps to the next statement, which says this statement will also be executed. So if I remove this hash sign from the third line and save that file, re-execute this program, it has now displayed the uncommented line of code as well. It says this line will not be executed because it is a comment too, but it's no longer a comment because I have removed the hash sign, which was located at the beginning of this line. So if I put it back on, now this line is a comment, and re-executing the same source file with the correct file path will display the initial version of this initial version of the source file. You can have multiple lines of source code to be commented out in Python using the docstring markers, which are three triple double quotes at the beginning of the documentation and at the end of the documentation. These are actually treated as part of the program. These are some strings spread to multiple lines, but as we haven't been using them in our program, the Python interpreter might be tricked to treat them as multi-line comments. Python does not support multi-line comments, so if you need to comment out or disable a part of your code, you might use these triple double quotes at the beginning and at the end of the section that you want to be disabled or commented out. But still, this is not an actual comment as it is in programming languages like Java and C++, where you can start a comment and end that comment at some other location at multiple lines later, or you can comment out the entire source file if you need to. But in Python, in order to do that, you have to comment out each line individually, or you can simply use the docstring if your program, if the area you are commenting out does not affect the memory footprint, the size of your application. If it's very important for you to reduce the size of your program, it might not be a good idea to comment out large sections of code using these triple double quotes, because they will be consuming some memory in your computer or in that very little device. You might be programming a smartwatch or even smaller device which will have so little random access memory compared to your regular devices. So you might want to be careful about what your code is going to include and what your code is not going to include when it is deployed in the consumer's device. One more thing about Python programming language is that it executes each statement to be present in a single line. Even though it's a very long, let's say 1000 characters long statement, this is possible, but it's not human readable when you have such a long source line statement. And if you put it on your source file, okay, this is not so long. Let's consider that our editor was sized like this. Okay, we might have a very shorter editor, or we might have a very longer statement. We might want to divide this line, this statement, to multiple lines, as in this example here. This statement has to be has a long text string to be printed on the output terminal as a single line of text. Okay, this in fact is something like this. If I want to type it in, it would normally be typed into our source code like this, but it doesn't fit on my screen at the moment. I want it to be split into multiple lines, and now I can press enter. Python knows that this second line of code is actually part of the previous line. Okay, this is a single statement which is split by the backward slash, and when we print this, you're going to see that this entire text is going to be printed on a single line. It doesn't mean that when you enter a backslash, it's going to be placed on the next line. No, it's not going to be that way. These two lines of code will be treated as a single line of code, and it's going to display a single line at the end of our program. Let's jump to our command prompt and execute it here. Okay, as you see, this is the final. This statement has a long text string to be printed on the output terminal, which was the same one here, but it was coded in multiple lines using a backward slash. Okay, I've changed the contents, and I can also add another one. So I have my instruction, my single statement, which should consume only one line in regular cases, but I cannot read it in that way, so I want it to be split among multiple lines. I just use the backward slash at the end of each line. If I add more text after this one, this is going to raise an error. Okay, let's see the error. It says there's something that I don't know. So the backward slash has to be the final character on that line. There should be nothing more following that backward slash on that specific line. This is very important. And when you now execute it after saving, when you execute this source code, it's going to print this. It hasn't actually printed it on multiple lines. This is this terminal showing it to you on multiple lines. If you decrease the width of this terminal, it's going to garble all those texts, but actually it's displayed on a single line. When you print it, the statement has a long text string to be printed on the output terminal, but it was coded in multiple lines using multiple backward slashes. Now it was one initially, now using backward slashes. Okay.